Power Queen is having a big Black Friday sale now through November 29th where you can save 6% off everything on their website, from this 100 amp hour trolling motor battery that has Bluetooth and low temperature charge protection to their 100 amp hour mini batteries, everything. So in order to celebrate that, I thought we'd take a look at their giant 300 amp hour battery, this time on Ham Radio Tube. So here's the cool thing about a ginormous battery like this. This isn't one of those fancy batteries that's got the Bluetooth or the low temperature charge protection. This is just pure massive capacity and power. And that's all I care about. I don't personally care about low temperature charge protection. I don't really care about Bluetooth. That's just me. I live in South Texas. It doesn't freeze. I care about what happens when the power goes out. With Hurricane Helene still in everybody's mind, everything in Asheville, those people still don't have power. And I lose power periodically. We have hurricanes, we have ginormous storms here in Texas. I lose power with quite a bit of regularity. And with a battery like this, I don't have to stop working, I don't have to stop leisure activities, I don't have to stop anything because my house all of a sudden doesn't have power. So I did some figures. We'll get to that in a second, but let's talk about what this battery is rated for. Obviously 300 amp hours. We're gonna get to what that translates to in a minute, but it's a lithium iron phosphate battery, 12.8 volt nominal. They charge to 14.6, settle down to 13.3 volts or so, 3,840 watt hours. The life cycle on this, with 100% depth of discharge, they rate this at 4,000 cycles. You can get even more cycles if you don't discharge it all the way. A 200 amp BMS. That is important for me because with our high current devices like microwaves, air fryers, coffee makers, those types of things, 100 amp BMS probably isn't gonna make the cut with full-size kitchen appliances. So having that 200 amp BMS in here is definitely gonna be something we're gonna wanna look for. Recommended charging current is 60 amps, but we can charge up to 200 amps with this. If we have all kinds of solar, you can put some current into this, and we can also pull 200 amps from this. So those are the specs. As far as weight, it weighs 57.9 pounds, so not incredibly heavy. Like if you're looking to replace from lead acid batteries, this weighs significantly less than a lead acid battery of its comparable size. Even a smaller lead acid battery would weigh more than this. And they also say a surge discharge current of 800 amps for 1 second. I don't have a way to test that, so we'll have to take them for their word, but that's a pretty huge surge current right there. Now I mentioned this does not have low temperature charging protection. So the temperatures we can charge this, you don't want to charge it below 32 degrees or over 122 degrees, so a pretty wide charging temperature there. But the discharge range is -4 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and you want to store it between 14 and 122 degrees Fahrenheit. Now I said before, prices of lithium iron phosphate batteries have gone down tremendously in the past few years. Right now, this regularly retails for $559.99. With the Black Friday sale, you can take like 33 bucks off, making it 526 and change. So very, very affordable for someone who's looking to have some kind of off-grid power solution like this. So what does a giant capacity battery like this actually do for you in the real world? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked, and I've got some notes because I've done some tests. This room that we're currently standing in right now, this is the main room that I'm in 90% of the time when I'm awake. This is where I film videos. This is where I edit videos. This is where my ham radio station is. This is like the fun room of the house. And with everything on in this room, this workbench, these lights, I've got a 42-inch 4K TV with a Geochron on it. I've got my computer with 2 monitors. I've got 15 LED lamps in here. My internet router, remember, just because your power's out doesn't necessarily mean your internet is out. If you can power your router with an inverter, you can probably get back online, especially if it's just a local power outage. So everything on in this room, except for my ceiling fan, this room pulls about 45 amps. So what that means is if my power goes out and I have everything on in here, which I really wouldn't in a power outage, but if I did, I could spend 6.5 hours powered on with this one battery. So that means you don't have to stop working. You can have internet, you can entertain yourself, you can watch YouTube videos just like this, you can communicate with the outside world, and you can have lights on or anything else you want to have on because you've got 300 amp hours of power. My living room for leisure time with my 55-inch 4K TV, my light, my 5.1 surround sound stereo with the powered subwoofer, all of that stuff pulls about 20 amps. So I could spend 15 hours in my living room with everything on with this one battery. But what's the most important thing we think of when the power goes out? Our food, our refrigerators. Well, my refrigerator, when the compressor is on, pulls 12 amps. So if the compressor were on the entire time, which it's not, I could run my fridge for 25 hours. Okay, that's huge. It's probably double that because the compressor isn't on all the time. Probably 2 days worth of time with my fridge on. So that means all the food in your fridge can stay fresh and you won't have to worry about throwing it out. Microwave, what if you want to cook? My microwave pulls 138 amps, which would mean that I could run it for over 2 hours with this battery. Same thing with my air fryer, pulls 133 amps, 2.25 hours. So you can keep the power on, you can cook, you can keep your food fresh, all with one battery. But I didn't stop there. If I had everything that we just talked about on except for the microwave and the air fryer, so this room, my living room, and the fridge, all of that together is 77 amps. So I could power the 3 main rooms in my house that I use the most for just under 4 hours. That is incredible. But think about maybe camping, RVing. I've got a 12 volt, I think it's a 50-liter cooler that pulls about 35 amp hours in a day. So I could get about 8.5 days worth of cooler usage out of one 300 amp hour battery. Real numbers don't lie. And speaking of real numbers, every battery I get, I do a capacity test first thing. So I charged this up, I did a discharge test at 10 amps, and I pulled over 304 amp hours out of this battery. So definitely passes the capacity test with flying carpets. But now we've got to test this 200 amp BMS, right? So I've got my voltmeter here connected directly to the terminals so we can monitor any kind of voltage sag right at the battery under load. I've got an amp meter right here, 3000 watt inverter, heat gun, space heater, and if we need it, a vacuum cleaner. So let's go ahead and fire everything up. Let's start with the heat gun here. That's pulling on high, about 119 amps right there. Doing good. Let's turn on our space heater. There's our 200 amps right there. 207 amps. Seeing 12.49 volts at the terminals. This is 2,280 watts, 2,270 watts at the inverter. So no problem handling 200 amps. Yeah, 204-ish, 203, somewhere in there. No problem at all. That's fantastic. Let's see if we can turn the vacuum on, see what happens. I want to watch this meter when I turn the vacuum on. There we are. Oh, that's too much for my inverter. All right, now the vacuum's on. 116 amps. Let's turn the space heater on. That's ramping up. Let's turn the heat gun on. Heat gun's on low. There's 223 amps. Let's see if we can get the heat gun on high now. 270, 280 amps, 286 amps, 87, 287 amps. We're still seeing 12.12 volts at the terminals. That's freaking sweet. That's a lot of power. Hoo-wee. And then look at that, everything's off, jumping right back up to 13.12. That voltage will rise as the batteries kind of settle down from that huge, almost 300 amp load. Good Lord. So no problem pulling the rated 200 amps out of this thing. I'd say this is a winner. So there we have it, guys. If you're looking for batteries for off-grid, camping, RVing, fun projects to make a battery box out of, ham radio, whatever the case may be, and you want to save money, head over to powerqueen.com for their Black Friday sale now through November 29th. My name is Mike, K at MRD. Thanks for watching Ham Radio Tube. We'll see you next time.